At the 1970s and 80s. And the reality of it is that what we're seeing now is almost a complete replication to a certain degree of what we saw in the 70s. So if you went back and said, okay, let's pretend the 1970s or today, 2023, what should I have done if I were an investor in the 1973 to 1982 economic, hysteria and inflation and recession? Well, what I should have done is said, what's going to be the outcome of a particular investment? In other words, we're headed into high inflation, higher than it is today. We know that we have a great deal more demand for fossil fuels than we're able to put out. The oil and gas industry has a cap on it, like a flea jumping in a jar. It's hitting its head because we can't get past 12.2 million barrels a day. And now we're laying down rigs left and right, which means it's going to go down in production and activation. So limited supply. We need, 7 to 8 million barrels a day imported, more than we produce. So it's clear we're going to be a net consumer versus a net exporter. And at the same time, you have banks being told not to lend money. Well, that's all fine and dandy, except for one main thing. And that is today, if I'm looking at the 1970s event, I want to own energy because it basically went from $3.50 a barrel to almost $12, $15 a barrel. Is about a 6 times multiple above what the price was when the beginning of the recession and inflation started. Because at the end of the day, I go look at tenderloin. I love tenderloin steak. I go look at tenderloin in the grocery store, right? You walk in there, and it used to be tenderloin was the most expensive piece of meat, and it was in 2 or 3 to a package. Now you can't find 2 or 3 to package. You can find no tenderloin because why? They're looking at the cheapest, easiest way to process beef and put it on the shelf. So inflation is going to be a factor of rising energy costs, and that meat packer is going to say, I can't afford to slaughter 1,000 cows this month. I can only get 500 because the ranchers can't afford the feed and the fertilizer. So I'm going to charge more for the 500 I get than the 1,000 I used to get by breaking into small packages. Inflation is going to be driven by a supply derailment. Same thing is going to happen in oil and gas. We're going to produce less. They're going to have to pay us more. We don't have new rigs. We haven't built a rig in 7 years. We don't have the crews. We don't have the team. Sand costs have gone up. Horsepower has gone up. When diesel rises, it's going to go up. So the truth is, this industry, oil and gas, we've done our job without any assistance from the government, any assistance from banking. This is the greatest industry on the planet because we're the most innovative, toughest SOBs you've ever found. And no matter how bad they chop our knees, we figured out how to produce 12.2 million barrels a day out of our own pockets. And now the reality is, because we've had this suppressed oil price and now natural gas has settled into probably what it should have been absent the Russian war, we should have probably around 350. With that two pricing commodities, we'd probably still be at 700 rigs a day. We wouldn't have had record earnings last year. We'd had good earnings, but not record. And we'd be drilling at a normal pace. Well, instead we peaked. We have a lot of cash. Now we're paying the price for it because reduced commodity prices. And guess what? All the budgets are being revisited saying, we don't have the money we had last year. We're going to be cutting back. What's that going to do? It's going to lower supply. And the demand is still increasing. And so whoever's in the position of looking forward 24 to 36 months will accumulate some of the best assets this year, next year they'll ever acquire. And they'll do it with knowing that, in my view, commodity prices are almost a given increase of 15 to 30% over the next 36 months. That's my view on the market.
So there's a